Okay. Are we live? All right. Yeah, we're live. The red light is flashing. The numbers are counting down. I see the indicator is moving. I think we're live. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Verde Arbusto, and this is the Schumann Resonance Harmonics channel on YouTube and on Facebook. It is the 18th. I'm in the next day. I'm now in Friday, 18th of December, 2020, and there's about 6 to 7 inches of snow on the ground today. We got hit by a blizzard, but not too bad. Largely, it was cold today, but it was not windy, and we got some sun. Some of the snow had a chance to kind of melt and um, warm up a little. So it's not too bad outside. But I spent the majority of the day, like 7 hours today, shoveling and sanding for my boss. Who she is the property manager of a number of properties, and this is how I support myself. Roof over my head is by doing um, landscaping, which in the wintertime includes snow removal. Um, okay, so with that said, um, thank you for being here. I appreciate all the comments, the love and support I get. Make sure you share, subscribe, like, and comment. Thumbs up. The more that you interact with and comment on my videos, the more they come up on your. If you like the videos, they'll come up for you. That's how you get the videos to keep coming up on the top. Is the algorithm sees, it looks at what you're doing, and it bases its recommendations on where you've been. So if you like the video, make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment, thumbs up, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so with that said, the our lesson today, as it shows on the screen, is amplitude. We're discussing amplitude, and I have a post on Facebook on my group. Um, the same basic thing I'm going to give here, and there's also the post on YouTube. So essentially, what I want to do, I've already talked about the spectrographs. Spectrogram. Sorry, I've done a few videos. I think I did a short series on spectrograms in general. I've already covered that. There's more that I can say. There's more to this. There's a lot more. But for right now, I've covered the spectrogram. So what I'm going to do the next few videos, or at least this one, I'm starting with this one, talk about amplitude. Then the next one, or in this particular series here, would be quality and then magnetics. So hopefully I can get to those in the next three videos. But at any rate, that's what uh, the plan is here going forward. That it's time to talk about specifically the amplitude. I I mention frequently in my posts that I talk about amplitude and then I talk about quality. Okay, so this is where I'm at here, talking about amplitude, because it's important when you are looking at the charts and the graphs, especially the spectrogram, that you know what it is you're looking at. And it's really important that if you do have a graph in front of you and you're looking at it like this, that you do know what you're looking at. There is a lot of, it's important for you, but there's a lot of BS out there of people that tell you all kinds of stuff that's not what this is. They guess. And so if you're looking to find out how the Schumann resonances work, you've come to the right place. Congratulations, welcome. I'm happy that you're here. Without further ado, I'm going to talk about the amplitude, Schumann resonances amplitude. All right. Uh, it's the actually the 18th. I said the 20. It's the 18th today. Okay. What is the amplitude of the Schumann resonances? All right. Um, and basically, what I'm doing here is it's an excerpt of a bunch of things I've written in different places, and I kind of compiled it together. So it's just the amplitude. All right. So amplitude relative to the Schumann resonances. What is amplitude of the Schumann resonances? First, let me address the issue of the incoming 5D, 6D gamma bursts. Okay, and this is like a quote, a phrase in quotations, incoming 5D, 6D gamma bursts. Relative to the detectors of the Schumann resonances range of waves, radiation, and energy. There's a general sea of misinformation from which the majority of folks seem to be dipping, within which or from which comes the body of knowledge relevant to the Schumann resonances. So there's a lot of bad information out there, is what I'm saying. Much of what the white spikes that people claim, okay, and let me, when I talk about the white spikes on the Schumann graphs, we're talking about these. This is amplitude. Okay, but let me pause this so I can find a picture of the spectrogram, today's spectrogram. Okay. So you don't see any white spikes. This is today's current Schumann resonances. And so even though you would see these spikes here, there are no white spikes on here to show you. Okay. Um, there has been many Schumann resonance graphs that have shown the white spikes, and that is what people are calling the 5D, 6D gamma bursts from elsewhere. All right. So the point is, there's not one here to show you, even or I would. Okay. All right. Let me pull back my. Okay. So this is back to our amplitude chart. Okay. Basically, what I'm saying in the introduction is much of what people claim the 5D, 6D gamma bursts. Um, it's not that those don't happen. It's fine enough that they happen. I'm not saying that they don't happen. What I'm telling you is the quote unquote 5D, 6D gamma bursts are not picked up by the Schumann resonance antennas. Okay. The gamma light is well the other side, way in the other side of the spectrum of light information that comes in to us, and there is a much broader range, much wider, broader range of data and incoming signals and light information and all of that stuff that does not get shown on the Schumann resonances because, at least here at Tomsk, and any of the other stations that are measuring only the Schumann resonances, which are up to 46 hertz. So any of the stations that are measuring only the Schumann resonances are not going to pick up that 5D, 6D gamma stuff. Again, the debate is not whether or not it's happening. The debate is whether or not the Schumann antennas can pick it up, specifically Tomsk. Now, we talk about the amplitude spikes coming from other places like the Central Italy Electromagnetic Network, CIEN. Um, their their antenna system picks up a different range of signals than Tomsk does. So they get those crazy spikes out of the machines looking for earthquake information. So depending on what these antennas are looking for, they'll pick up a different range of signals. We're nailing this down to the Schumann resonances and only that. We're not talking about the range of ELF. We're not talking about the range of VLF, even though it is interesting and it's somewhat related and there's a kind of overlap there. Specifically speaking, non-interference Schumann resonances are only 0.3 to 46 hertz. It's like 45.5 or something like that. So rounded up to 46. All right. So the incoming 5D gamma light, these are not the white spikes of gamma light radiation. Um, Again, we're not debating whether it is or isn't happening. That's not the point here. I will agree, sure, that's coming in, but I'm going to say that the Schumann antennas aren't picking this up because it's the lowest of the low. That's what Schumann resonance waves are the lowest of the low frequency. Okay. Um, so much of that 5D, 6D gamma energy is not picked up on the Schumann resonances because the Schumann resonances are at the lower end of the spectrum, and those gamma bursts or X-ray bursts are filtered out. They're, first off, the antennas are too big to pick up those, the wiring and the induction coil and all of it is geared up for signals that are much lower than the gamma X-ray bursts and all that. So the Schumann antennas aren't even picking that up because it's not designed to pick up that frequency range of information. Okay. Amplitude is the electric signal of the Schumann resonances. And I'm just trying to find my place here. It's an electric component of the Schumann resonances and of the global electric circuit. It comes to us top down, where am I? Top down from the ionosphere, which has a potential of approximately 200,000 volts. So that's 200 kilovolts to the Earth ground. So the potential from the ionosphere to the Earth ground is approximately 200,000 volts. Amplitude comes top down, which means it does not rise to a frequency. What you're saying is when the amplitude rises, it bumps up. That's because it has bounced off of the ground and it's rising as a as a condition of that. But the amplitude itself doesn't start at 0 and then move up to, you're seeing it here at 16, this peak of 16, and this is decibels of electron volts. Okay, so it's not even a full volt, it's an electron volt, okay, which is a smaller segment. Okay, so amplitude does not reach up to a frequency, it lowers down to the reported decibel power rating, which is the decibels of pico-electron volts. Amplitude spikes are not resonances, nor are these harmonic frequencies. These are jolts of electricity, which are reported as spikes on the Schumann spectrogram. It originates from a much higher voltage than that which is reported by the detector antenna. Amplitude spikes are not resonances, nor are they harmonics, and nor are they ever measured in hertz, which is a frequency rating, which is cycles per second. A hertz, spelled capital H, ERTZ, which is named after Wilhelm, I forget the guy's first name, Hertz. The guy's last name was Hertz. And a hertz is a general term meaning frequency or cycles per second. Okay. And these scientific principles they named after the founder or the inventor of it. So Hertz is the frequency rating, and that cycles per second. Okay. So amplitude is not a frequency rating. It's a velocity. It's a straight line. So more to the point, when you hear people talking about the Schumann resonance, they look at the amplitude. They say the Schumann resonance was up to 50, or today it's up to 16. They would say it's up to 16, but that is incorrect. It's an amplitude. When they give the power rating, that's amplitude. That is not a frequency rating. The Schumann resonances are frequency, which are cycles per second, and those are waves. The amplitude chart you're looking at here is a straight line vector. This is not a frequency. Amplitude is not a frequency. It never has been, nor will it ever be a frequency. It is a velocity, which is essentially kilometers per second. The speed of light is measured in kilometers per second. All right, so the amplitude is measured in the same thing as light, kilometers per second. Okay. The measurement of Schumann resonances, or the measurement, is not that of wave frequency. Like I said, it's not harmonics. It is a standing wave which results in an interference pattern as seen on the spectrogram. Harmonics are caused from multiple waves which vibrate at different frequencies. The difference between the two frequencies is the resonance, it's the harmonic. And that's what the 7.83 is. it's the difference between two. One of the fundamental frequencies is lower than 7.83. One of those frequencies is higher than 7.83. So the fundamental frequency that you have is the time it takes light to get around the planet, which is 1/8 of a second. So light traveling around the second makes light traveling around the world, around the globe, makes it back home in 1/8 of a second. So the harmonic frequency of light is 8 hertz here on Earth. So that's the first fundamental frequency. How do you like that? FFF. First fundamental frequency is 8 hertz. Then the next ones after that are as it bounces and bounces and interferes with itself, you get these resonances like that they stack up one on top of the other at intervals of 6.6 hertz. And these are the harmonics. That is the quality portion of the program, which I'm not getting into here. Okay. How it works. The Schumann Resonance spectra is a mechanical sensor in the field antenna-based measurement of the EMF, which is electromagnetic frequency envelope. This electromagnetic field envelopes or surrounds the Earth. The RF waves, the radio frequency waves, are bounded by the Earth on one side, then out to the outer edge of the ionosphere, ultimately constrained by the magnetosphere. Okay, and then there's a semicolon there that I think I was going to put more there and I didn't. All right, so the that's a kind of bit of a kind of tongue twister there for me even to say it, let alone for you to even read it and think about it. But basically, the we talk about a waveguide cavity. A waveguide cavity. That is the space between the planet, the surface of the planet, and the ionosphere. Okay, so in between this, the ionosphere up here, and the planet down here, there is this waveguide, which is what the Schumann resonances bounce in. Okay. Primarily, and again, this is amplitude, it's not bouncing here, but the green mode in the quality is what's going to do most of the bouncing. Okay. So what we're talking about is that the cavity, the surrounding this um how do I explain it? The medium that the Schumann resonances propagate through is the lower atmosphere from the ionosphere down to the planet Earth. Okay, so that is what they call the waveguide. That, again, between the ionosphere and the Earth, that space is what the Schumann resonances bounce in, and those are the harmonics. Okay. The mechanical antenna. All right, so the Schumann antenna detector units are placed in remote locations, often on mountains, out in the middle of a field, to avoid as much domestic interference as possible. They are custom built to detect and measure a certain bandwidth or range of frequencies. Depending on the internal windings, which are the copper coils that are wound around the electromagnetically permeable material. So there are, for the amplitude, all right, so I'm kind of, that's a little bit kind of confusing, but the dipole antenna measures the amplitude portion of the program. So that's an upright antenna like that. I tell people to think of it, there's different types of antennas, but I tell people to think of the amplitude antenna as like the old style whip for CB radio, or the old type antennas that were, that were, actually like a stick. I don't think cars have those anymore. I think it's a different. They have the antenna in the windshield or something like that. Um, but that's essentially the dipole antenna. You can look at that as a CB whip type of antenna. Okay, that's what measures the amplitude part. All right. So the quality which are the magnetics, that is an induction coil, and that's what gets all the windings. And that is the induction coil part is the heart of the antenna system for Schumann resonances. The electric portion, it's important, but not, in my humble view, the electric portion, the amplitude, is not as important as the magnetic portion, because the magnetic portion is what goes around the globe. Whereas the amplitude, all these spikes, all of this are local. Now, the local stuff, and let's assume that this is not coming from some machines down the road from Tomsk. Let's just assume this is all good stuff coming from the ionosphere and the sun and all of that. Okay. So even with that, these are still local up to, we'll say, 5 kilometers. You yourself in your neck of the woods, you're going to have different results. Okay. So when I tell people that when we look at Tomsk, it's an educational model. That's a good way to look at this, that your results will vary. This is simply an educational model to tell you how the system works. It's not a spot on, one-on-one corroboration of ascension symptoms or phantom, they call them phantom symptoms, that you may have. We're talking specifically about the ringing in the ears. We're talking about the dizziness or the so-called vertigo symptoms, and the headache and sinus related thing that comes here. So those three main issues are what are affected by this, to varying degrees, but they're caused by crystals, or bone type crystals that are in your ear and that are in your pineal, your third eye. All right. So those crystals get affected, and I've made numerous posts on this about the piezoelectric principle. So due to the piezoelectric principle, you're getting hit by these spikes of amplitude, and that's what's causing a good number of the symptoms that you're experiencing. Okay. Amplitude is the electric portion of the EMF radiation which we receive. It gets propagated at 90 degrees perpendicular to the Earth, the surface of the Earth, and it is therefore measured by a vertical dipole antenna. Okay? All right, next section. Understanding the interchange between the DC and AC circuits is imperative to understanding the relationship between amplitude and quality. All right. So I have mentioned this before in other places. I need to do a video on just this and explain it a little better. But we're talking about the Earth as both the DC and the AC circuit. Okay. So DC is direct current, AC is alternating current. DC, there's two DC circuits on the planet, or of the planet. The first one is what we get from the sun, directly from the sun to our magnetosphere. Okay, that leaches or permeates down to the ionosphere. It is from that we ultimately receive the Schumann resonances. What's in the ionosphere comes forced down into the clouds, and they kind of accumulate a charge, and then we get that as lightning. All right, so that basic process is the first DC circuit, the global electric circuit. Okay. AC, alternating current, is a wave. All right. So once we get that initial spark going from the first DC circuit to the second, being the planet Earth, we have that spark of electricity that bridges the gap. That first initial impulse of amplitude is what sends the Schumann resonances on its way. And that is essentially how we get the Schumann resonances, are by these, if you think of it like you hit a bell. You electrically spark the bell and it starts ringing. So that's what these are the first pingings of the ringing of the bell, from which you get a ringing of the ears. Okay, so if you can think of it that way, that this starts the process, and then eventually the ringing is what is vibrating from the magnetic side, which is qualities, and those are the actual Schumann resonances that are vibrating. Okay, that's more or less what you're hearing. At least this is my theory. All right. I'm working to prove this, but it's a theory anyway. All right. Light exists. Hold please. Light exists as both particle and a wave. Particles may be contained within or as a plasma field. Uh, Lightning is not a plasma, but lightning causes a plasma. This plasma type field is amorphous, it's shapeless, formless, and it exists unified through attraction or shared electron bonds. So, plasma, Wages World and other people have described it as a gas. That's a good way to look at it. Your blood itself has a plasma, which is not a gas, but it's an amorphous substance that kind of holds it together. All right. So this is what we're talking about with plasma is it's an amorphous kind of cloud that gets directed from the sun. It gets shot out from the sun in a CME. So these amorphous clouds, if you will, get directed at a super really fast speed, and it winds up staying coherent because it's moving at such a high velocity, and it's all sent out from the sun. So it's high charge. It's very uh, condensed. That's I think it's important to recognize as well that at part of its this is what we call the density. It's part of what its um, makeup is the density is how tightly packed together the electrons are, and that's when you have the density stream. That's what it is how compact those electrons are. Okay. Light exists as both a light as a particle and a wave. um, okay, they exist outside of time. All right, so these electric plasma fields that get shot at us exist outside of time. They move, they're not a frequency, they're not a wave, okay, and they move at a pace that's faster than time. Okay, cycles per second. All right, so these things move within 1 second. They move many kilometers. It's quicker than you can see. And they have specialized machines that measure these. So it is and it's not. Okay, for the purposes of the Schumann resonances, you have to look at it this way: that it is outside of time because it's quicker than a cycle per second. All right. So the Schumann resonances are only able to measure 1 second. That's the least time it can measure. And these things move quicker than a second. So when I talk about it exists outside of time, or it might exist as time, as the density. When it becomes established, it establishes a time. I don't want to make this too complicated, but this is what the amplitude is that it establishes the dimensions, which are the time scale. So we don't have anything here on this planet that isn't based on a time scale or time signature somewhere. Um, uh, Everything vibrates. Everything's at some resonant frequency. Even the molecules of the atoms are vibrating. They're kind of going around and around and around. So there is a sense of a frequency there, of a vibration rate. Yes, the atoms themselves do move at a certain speed. Um, but relative to the lowest of the low frequency waves, this is what we're talking about with the Schumann resonances. So in this scale, we're not infinite here. We're not well beyond, we're not God here. There's a very narrow, restricted range that we're measuring with the Schumann resonances. And so these amplitude spikes that come in, they're very dense and very quick. They're moving beyond frequency. They're moving beyond, time itself. And this is a difficult concept for people to kind of wrap their heads around when we're talking about what the Schumann resonances are and the 5D, 6D. Who knows? What is it? I don't know. You don't know. Does anyone know? I do. I know because I had to ask my guides, explain this to me. And they explained a lot of this to me when I was a teenager. That's how I know this. I never thought it would be relevant at all, ever. And so here it is. I'm 50 something. And what I what was revealed to me as a teenager is now, suddenly now becoming relevant. I guess it's good before I die at some point. I'm to be shown I'm not completely crazy. Um, so with the amplitude, we're establishing the dimensions here based on ding, 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 the wave length itself, well, the density of the density of the stream. Okay, so this the density. How do I put this? The density of the stream is helping to establish the time scale. If you're familiar with music, you know you have 4/4 time, there's 2/4 time, whatever, it's different. I don't even know that much about it, but I do know there are time signatures when we're talking about music. And that's essentially what this is, the different time scales, if you will. This is like 4/4, this is 3/4, this is 2/4, and this is like 1/4. Okay, that's the best way to look at that. Okay. General helpful information on electron discharge of the planetary sphere. We're talking about, again, the AC and the DC circuit. The Earth sphere, which includes the planet, the ionosphere, the magnetosphere system, uses both DC and AC currents to convey electricity around the global electric circuit. These two components use separate but interrelated methods of transferring electricity and electron depositioning throughout the circuits of the planet herself. Basic description of behavior is as follows. DC, which is direct current circuit, generates from the direct radiation of Sun to Earth connectivity, further transmitting and conducting through the planetary ley lines. All right. So that is the lower when we talk about the planet itself and the lower and the ley lines. This is the second DC circuit. All right. So again, we have two DC circuits: the one that we get from the sun to the magnetosphere, and then there is the one where the Earth conducts electrically uh, um, throughout the planet, throughout the surface. Okay, and that's what the lay part of the people who understand ley lines. That's part of what this is the global nodal circuits. The pyramids are on one of those nodes. If you go around the world and you look at all the different monuments, the different huge megalithic structures, you'll find that they are planted on a nodal point, a ley line point. More to this point, the Vatican, as well as the negative forces on the planet, have surreptitiously corrupted those nodal points. There's one over there in France and Sweden at the LHC at CERN that they hijacked. The Vatican telescope, um, Trinity, red pill, blue pill was talking about this. How the Vatican stole that sacred site and planted their ridiculous antenna on that. It's not that they couldn't have gone elsewhere, but that particular one was sacred, and so that's why the Vatican hijacked it. They stole that sacred site for use of their apocalyptic end of the world device that they're calling Lucifer. It's an antenna. All right. All right. So the two DC circuits of Earth. Then you have the alternating current, AC, alternating current circuit results. These are results of lightning discharges from the DC sources. The waves which vacillate eventually coalesce, combining into interference patterns, which we recognize as the Schumann resonances. The ionosphere. This envelope is essentially where the irradiance from our sun is turned from a plasma into visible light. Through having certain densities of the plasma discharges from the sun get caught within the magnetic gravity of the Earth's magnetic field. this plasma type C of electron charge, and charge is plus or minus. Okay. There's charge and current. When we talk about the Schumann resonances, and we talk about electricity, we have charge and current. Charge is the electric up and down portion. Charge is amplitude. Charge is plus or minus. Okay. Current is the width of it. Current is a direction, north to south, east to west. Current is the magnetic portion of it. It's the amperes section of it. Charge is the voltage section of the signal. Okay. So the potential, the C of potential in the ionosphere is 200 to 250,000 volts, which kilovolts. This layer of highly charged electrons envelopes and circles the Earth as a boundary layer of the high charge potential, which holds intact the mass of plasma, not penetrating into the magnetosphere. So the sun hits our magnetosphere, it goes kind of around us like a shield, past us. You figure the letter, the number 8 or an infinity. It's kind of got this bow shock in front of us that directs everything around us. All right, that's the magnetosphere. The ionosphere is the one directly below that, which circles the Earth. The magnetosphere goes way, 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 way around us, whereas the ionosphere is directly enveloping the planet. Okay. So that's what that means. This whole system is held intact and constant due to a number due to the spinning motion of the planet. There's a lot of variables, the various atmospheric pressures, spatially dense elements of oxygen, nitrogen, whatever, our regular atmosphere. All right. Amplitude is height. It is the DC content of the Schumann resonance spectrum. Again, it's an amorphous field which travels in a straight line, taking the path of least resistance. It moves with a velocity or speed and not a frequency. Velocity is a straight line measurement. Lightning discharges happen within the span of a second, less than a second, the base time scale of the hertz or cycle per second. A discharge or series of discharges happening within the span of a second are not recordable as a frequency. They're bursts that come, they're straight line, ding, 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 and that's it. We're hit it and quit it, we're done. They cannot be ascribed a time derivative function like a wave or a harmonic resonance. Amplitude are the vertical upright spikes seen on the spectrogram, and I tried to show you one, and we don't have one per se. All right, not today. These are low numbers here relative to spikes. Okay, so even if we look at where are we? Even if we look at the numbers way over here, this one here at a 10. Okay, that's tiny. Usually this is like in a 30 or something. So these are all very, very small. This one here, the white one, mode 1, amplitude 1 is up to 16. This one here, the yellow one, amplitude 2, A2, the peak only reached 3.5. This one here, the amplitude 3, the peak only reached 5.3. This one here, the amplitude 4, the peak only reached 10. This is like nothing. These are very light amplitude days. Okay. Um, amplitude dependency, how to interpret the reports. All right, amplitude dependency is the first line graph under the spectrogram. All right, so that's this one here. Electrics which act in near unison indicate the energies would be incoming or originating from the highest point of our atmosphere, or even beyond. Depending on the frequency we're getting here, it might be beyond. What we're getting might be beyond the ionosphere. Okay. Amplitude is plotted on the spectrogram as vertical spikes. The tallest of these pulses is measured by mode 1, which is the white colored lines of the graph. Right? So this is mode 1. The white in Tomsk, white is mode 1. So you have amplitude 1, quality 1, and frequency 1, and they're all white because they measure a certain range of the overall spectrum. All right. Eventually, electrics turn into magnetics, which are called quality, as the plasma of the highly pho- as the plasma of the highly photonic electric component of solar radiance, irradiance, interacts with the nitrogen oxygen molecules of our immediate atmosphere where we live, the plasma particles degrade or convert into magnetic waves. So it starts out the amplitude upright here. Where am I? Right. Upright. Okay. So the amplitude comes in upright, but top down comes in upright, or comes in upright, and then it hits the ground, grounds into the ground, does its thing, and then there is an uptake, an upkick. There's an action, a reaction. So the reaction of the planet is sends out. Uh, it's like you throw a stone into the water. Pew! The stone goes into the water, and then you see the splashes of it come up. Okay, so this is like a displacement of sorts. Okay, um, but it is the follow through. It's the action reaction. So it comes in, but again, these are like photons, photonic energy. It's not just an invisible charge. It actually is a thing. It's a photonic plasma that hits the earth and then it kind of bounces. Part of it, grounds in, but then there's the other part of it that kind of bounces up, springs up, and then that's where you get the quality portion. That's where you get the Schumann resonances are from this bouncing, the return of that, of the circuit. All right. Eventually, electrics turn into magnetics called quality. The plasma of the I read this. Incoming energy is sourced directly from the sun is much more highly charged electric in nature, yet it too has the magnetic component, which is later arriving. So you can't have, as far as we know, you can't have the electrics without the magnetics. There's two portions to this. Again, one's the height and the other is the width. Okay. So if it's taller height, it's going to be narrower width. All the energy is directed forward, but straight up and forward. Or not all, but the majority of it. It's straight line. Then what happens is when it starts interacting with a medium or starts interacting with our environment or the atmosphere or whatever, it starts leaching off a charge and turns into a current because it's leaching off. It's not going this way anymore. It's leaching off and it's turning like that. So as the charge is coming through our environment, our atmosphere, it's attaching itself to the stuff in the environment, and as it does that, it's leaching out, and then eventually it hits the ground, it grounds in, and then the charge part of it is in the planet, but you're left with the other portion, the magnetic side of it, which doesn't get ground in. That goes, again, the analogy is like water. So the rock goes in, and then you have this kind of spray out like that, and that's the current as it grounds in. The important part of it grounds in, and then you're left with the I don't want to call it filler, but it's the magnetic portion of it, of the width, and it splays out as it comes in. It splays out, and you start having the waves like that. Even before the full charge of it gets grounded into the earth, from DC to DC, DC pole to DC pole, you have the positive charge and then the negative charge of the DC, like a battery. As it makes its way through the atmosphere, that ionized smell, that ozone smell, that's part of what you're getting with that, of the charged ions of the atmosphere, of the air, of the oxygen. And that's what gives you that kind of ozone smell, is that attachment of the electrons. And so as it's coming through the environment, the atmosphere, those charges are coming through the atmosphere. As soon as it starts leaving, it attaches itself to the elements around it, the nitrogen, oxygen, and immediately you start getting the radiance from it, the current, from that discharge. All right. Successively, this plasma is degraded into the waves of magnetism, the current again, which is a direction, north, south, east, west, which starts spreading out horizontally, and then it kind of falls back down, and then it becomes a cohesive wave. So the splaying out of it from the initial uh, uh, discharge moves out laterally, moves out horizontally, and then you'll get the waves. After it's kind of sprayed out, and then it hits again, and then it becomes a coherent wave. All right, and so that's generally speaking how you go from an electric discharge to the Schumann resonances. All right, so these develop into the first set of resonances which head out into our immediate environment. So the first wave is at that 8 hertz, or approximately 8 hertz frequency. The first fundamental goes around the world, and then it hits itself. It meets up with itself, kind of breaks itself up a little bit, and then keeps going. And then as it keeps going, it reinforces itself. Light travels around the planet 8 times. You know, it's circled in 1 second, it's circled around the world 8 times. So that 8 hertz frequency is the first fundamental, and then it starts stacking up as it breaks down. The standing waves start breaking down, they start interacting with each other, and they start forming the other higher resonances of 14.1, 20.7, 27.1, whatever. They're higher frequencies, but they are stacked up frequencies as they start moving around, hitting themselves. And the next time around the world it goes, it's not moving at 7.8 anymore, it's moving at a higher frequency. And then it moves the next time around the world at 14.1, and then it hits itself again, and then the next time it travels around at the next higher frequency, stacking up, like you picture it like a spiral. It stacks up in the next higher frequency range of 6.6 hertz. So it moves at the first one. The first one is actually 4.5. All right. Then the next one after that is 7.8, and then the next one after that, as it goes around and breaks down into smaller wavelengths, it increases the frequency. So it's not just moving faster because it's being pushed. As it breaks down those wavelengths and the wavelengths get shorter, it is just moving faster. So you get 33 hertz because the lower frequencies have all just kind of broken the waves down, and as every time it breaks it down in half, the wavelength jumps up like that. Okay, and that's what these are. As you break it down, you take this, you break this down in a half, and you get that right there. Then you break it down again, and you get this mode here. So that's how these are related, is that this is your unit of measure here, or actually this is our unit of measure, and then this one is 2, and then that's 3, and then that's 4. Right? That's the best way to look at it. I have done a video on the modes already. It's complicated to explain it, but that's basically how you look at it relative to its own equation, I guess, is that these are related in that fashion, that if you took this as the first unit of measurement, or the first unit of measurement, the yellow one is the second unit of measurement, and that's the third of those, this red one is a third of those units, and the green one is the fourth of those units. Or or this is the 1 unit, and then that's half of it. For the amplitude, this is your unit, and then that's half of it again, and that's half of it again. Okay. Uh, for the quality, it works the other way, that this is your 1, and then it breaks down from that, it goes the other way. Amplitude, this is 1, that's half of that, that's half of that. With quality, this is your unit, then that's half of it, that's half of it, that's half of it. All right, hopefully that makes sense to you. This is beyond what I had intended to go into. This is the modes, but this is approximately where I am in this discussion, is explaining what the modes are. All right, so I'm not go even though I probably should, I'm almost at the end of this, but I'm not going to go into the dependencies right now. The video itself is almost at an hour. I'm at 49 minutes, and it was longer than I had intended it to be. All right. So, I think this is a good place to end today. I'll put a note here. I will have to do another video on the dependencies, because I think this gets into a more complicated issue than I'm ready at this point to deal with, because it's actually not talking about just the amplitude. When we're talking about the dependencies, we're also talking about quality, we're also talking about the frequency, and I'm not dealing with all of that as a whole right now. So amplitude is, how do I condense this. Amplitude is one of the dependencies, one of the three main dependencies that Tomsk uses to compile the spectrogram. All right. So amplitude is one of the amplitude is one of the dependencies, not frequency, dependencies. Amplitude is one of the dependencies that is used to measure the signal at Tomsk. All right, so I think that's probably a good way to close. I will discuss the dependencies in general of a more general topic and how the dependencies work with the modes and all that under another video. I think this one's long enough. And if you've stuck with me through all of this, I thank you very much. Again, please, if you like the video, comment, like, share, subscribe. If you don't like the video, feel free to thumbs down it and leave me a comment anyway. If you don't get what's in this, leave me a comment. Ask questions, say something. If you're a good-hearted person, leave a comment anyway. If you didn't get it, I would like people to understand this. I'm not trying to make this more complicated than it has to be, and there's a lot of stuff on here that is very complicated that's difficult for me to kind of break down in a way that you understand, but this is entirely about getting it so you can, John Q. Public, can get this and understand the basic parts of it. And that's why I'm doing this. I'm not doing this because I need everyone to think how smart I am and and me using this as a way to keep this information from you. That's not what this is. So if you get it, please leave me a comment. Thank you. I understood it. The parts that you do understand, please leave me a comment. If you don't get it, leave me a comment of what you don't get, and I answer all of the questions. I don't address all of the comments because some things don't need to be discussed. If you said great job, all right, hey, thank you. I just put a little star next to it. The majority of comments will get a star or or a thumbs up. But the questions, anyone that asks a question, I always will answer the questions and address it the best I can. And there's been a number of people where I have an ongoing dialogue, and then I think there's a few comments out there where people have asked me questions that I haven't really gotten to, but they're more complicated, and I think I've lost a few um, of the comments that I need to get back to. So anyway, so with that said, I do my best to answer the questions as I can, but I assure you, if you leave a comment, I will read it. I may not respond to it, but if you leave a comment, I will read it. I read all of them. I like hearing what people have to say. I may not agree with it, but I really want, from the bottom of my heart, I'm looking at you right here. From the bottom of my heart, I want this to be understood to you. It's that simple. And if I've made it too complicated for you, then I haven't done a good job here. If you're not understanding what I'm saying, then I've kind of failed in this. So my job here is to make this as understandable and digestible to you as I can make it. And so the only way that I know that, the only way that I know that I'm on target is if you tell me, you let me know. I really truly appreciate all the comments I get, and I'm spending a lot of time on this because I want you to know, if you've reached this far in the video, I want you to know that I appreciate the comments and I read all of them. And I thank you from all of my heart, from the top and the bottom of my heart, for all the comments and the love that I've gotten. It's overwhelming sometimes. Uh, okay, so on that cheery note, thank you all for being here. I appreciate, again, all the comments, the support, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever. Comment. It helps with the algorithm. Even if you thumbs it down, there's still an action. There's still something there. There's still an interest from people, and it'll keep the video kind of floating in the top somewhere, which is what I'm hoping for. I would like more people to understand how the Schumann resonances work. There's a lot of bad information out there, and I want to share the good information. My guides give me what I need to know to provide to you. Okay. So, on that cheery note for this rather long video, but this is the subject that, this is where we're at. This is what we're talking about, is the amplitude. And every time I make an observation on the Schumann resonances, I always talk about amplitude, because the one thing that people look at and they see the power of the Schumann, and they look at that and they see the amplitude, and they call that the Schumann resonances, and oh my God. So it's really important you understand what part of this the amplitude plays before one of my followers, goes rushing off and gives people the bad information. All right. So, on that cheery note, thank you all for being here. I appreciate everything, especially you, Bradley. Thank you for being here, and much love to everyone. I appreciate everyone from the Mark Pyers Wages World family, and I feel definitely included in that. Thank you all very much for all your love and support, I appreciate everyone. Thank you all for being here. Have a great rest of your day. Namaste. And I will see you at my next live stream, which I don't know what it is, but it'll be soon. All right. So thank you all. Have a great rest of your day, and stay warm, and huddle up while it's blizzarding outside. Thank you all for being here. Have a great day. Bye.